talking out loud with A.L. Cooper. She's talking out loud, but she's saying something. 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 Politics, religion, fashion, people, passion, lifestyles, no topic too wild. She's talking out loud, but she's saying something. She's talking out loud, but she's saying something. She's talking out loud, but she's saying something. She's talking out loud, but she's saying something.
Hey everybody, and welcome. You're watching Talking Out Loud with A.L. Cooper. I am your host, A.L., and today we are talking out loud about the evolution of love, sex, and marriage. Yeah, it's a definite hot topic, and we encourage you to stay tuned throughout the entire show. We have a great, hot, fantastic panel of guests today, and I am so excited for them to introduce themselves. Let's start with you, Miss Ma'am.
I guess I'll go first. I'm known as Kitty Pride. I have a blog, sexbykittypride.com. I've been studying sexuality for 15 years. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, and returning back, we have the wonderful, the fabulous Miss Dr. Rebecca Johnson. Welcome back.
Thank you. Quick 2 cents
Yes,
for those who
please.
don't know me. I am a licensed clinical psychologist and also a life coach. I also own and operate Concierge Psychology, which is the only concierge psychotherapy practice in Georgia. And I specialize in confidentiality. So my clients are mostly people for whom it is very important to them that it remain private, that they're seeing somebody. So I have a very private space they can be seen in, or I will also go to people's homes or works or whatever is convenient for them.
Fantastic. And lastly, we also have Talking Out Loud's business coach, Mr. Michael McCain. Welcome back, buddy.
Thank you for having me. My specialty is business coaching as well as nonprofit ministry.
Yes, you're an ordained minister.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, guys, this is going to be a hot topic. Love, sex, and marriage. Specifically the evolution of it in itself, because I know I'm I'm not old, but I'm not definitely young, kind of in between, but even just in my very much time here on this earth, I've seen the evolution of love. I mean, it just has evolved from one traditional state all the way to just a different level. I've never seen so much open, express love in regards to the way people love, how they have sex, and even how they are getting married. What are your thoughts on that? Now, Sexy Kitty Pride, I know you are a sexologist, and I know you have different clients that come to you that are struggling with different issues, maybe in a traditional realm, and they're looking at ways to express themselves. How have you seen your clientele change, or just from your studies, seen the evolution of love, sex, and money? And you guys, I mean, money, boy, I got something else on my mind.
Love,
of
sex,
marriage.
and money.
and you
Sometimes
guys
it's
can all
money.
chime in as well.
Honestly, I think the evolution is not necessarily what people are doing. What they're coming to me about is things that's been practiced since the beginning of time. I think the evolution is in the tolerance of it. I get a lot of men, for example, they may be in relationships, they may be single, some are men of the cloth, some are whatever, but they're questioning their sexuality. They're based on certain things they want to experiment with, based on sex acts, based on things they want to try with their wife, or in some cases, not to push the envelope too much, but same sex especially. And a lot more people are wanting to become more open. It's just that they're too afraid. But the actual acts and curiosities and things like that, none of that's new. None of that's new.
So there's
Yeah.
nothing new literally under the sun is what you're
Nothing.
saying. Nothing?
Nothing. I mean,
Come on. Caitlin,
Okay.
Caitlin, guys, come on.
well, let me put this out there. Pornography, as far as on video, that didn't start in the 70s. That started in France when the first camera came out.
Interesting.
And there's, they were using different things that you see now. And then the idea of pornography, just as an art form, that goes back to ancient times. That goes back to Egypt. That goes, there's things, artwork on the pyramid of different sex acts.
So
in England, things like that. So there's some may disagree, but the truth of the matter is that historically, a lot of things are not new. They're new to us because we happen to believe that these things are new.
Gotcha, but they're actually existed. What about some of the clients and some of your, people that you've ran into in being in the ministry? What are some of the things that you've encountered in regards to the evolution of love, sex, and marriage? Starting with Dr. Becker, what have some of the clients that you've experienced, are they struggling with this evolution? Are they looking to step outside of that traditional box?
I am a poly and kink sensitive provider, which means I do specifically work with couples who are operating outside of what we would consider to be a normal monogamous relationship.
Okay.
So people who are either swinging or polyamorous, which are two very, very different things.
Okay.
And I will say that I think as society becomes more accepting, although these are not new things historically, as society becomes more accepting, people are more willing to try. You have sex clubs, you have swingers clubs. I see more and more people who have never swung before, maybe aren't even actually interested in the swinging piece, but are just curious.
Interesting.
And, they will go just to see. And these are actually fairly nice places, fairly classy, and you have that anonymity there. So everybody who's there is there, so they're probably not going to tell anybody they saw you there. So there's some safety. And some people will go just to watch, or they go because they want to put on a show. And other people are saying, I've been married to this person for 15 years and kind of curious what else we can do. But I think, again, as society becomes more, people have always had these thoughts. If we look at the ancient Greeks, people have had all kinds of interesting ideas. If you watch Spartacus, you get an idea of that. But I do think that the climate now is allowing people to sort of, once again, explore where our country has been actually fairly sexually repressed, which I'm not going to blame on religion, but classic Catholicism is very monogamous, man and woman. So that has, I think, in some positive ways even caused us to tone things down from what they may have been 1,000 years ago.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now, Michael, you're Dr. Michael McCain. You are a minister. You are from the religious area. Do you think that there is something that people are moving away from religiously in order to what do you think about this as a minister? How does this make you feel when you hear that people are wanting, they're curious, is this a bad thing from a religious perspective, or is it a good thing, or is it showing that we're not holding up our own in regards to slowing down the evolution of love, sex, and marriage in a traditional sense?
Yes, I believe everything has its pros and cons, and I definitely believe that people are moving further from a set or specific religion and starting to embrace being more spiritual rather than identifying with a specific religion or denomination, however you choose to frame words to that. But I do believe religion has deeply affected what people call sexuality, how they define themselves, how they feel liberated in their relationships and in their bedroom. Often in the religious community, you're told a lot of what you can't do, but you're not told how to live.
Interesting.
How to be a person, how to enjoy life. Everything is a don't do this, don't do that. If you touch this, taste this, do that, you're going to hell.
Wow.
Really get hairy palms.
I know from my perspective, that's what I have been taught. Being raised in a Christian home and environment, that's just pretty much it is what it is. Do you think that it is a struggle? Do you ever have people coming to you because they're fighting this war, this war of religion and this war of curiosity, this war of wanting to do this but feeling like they have to do that? I know more and more these days people are saying that I'm like a woman living in a man's body, or a man living in a woman's body, or I have these type of fetishes and things that I just can't, they feel restricted because of religion. I want to get your take on that when we come back, and maybe even Dr. Becky, have you explore that from a clinical perspective with some of the things that you've dealt with. And of course, we wouldn't have a good conversation without the Miss Sexy Kitty Pride now. So we'll be right back with more of Talking Out Loud with A.L. Cooper.
They said a bottle was just a bottle. that no one would ever notice me. But I knew I could be more. That one day, I would make people smile.
Millions of loving cats and dogs in shelters and rescues need our help to find a home. So go to theshelterpetproject.org, search your local shelters and rescues, and adopt already.
Na, 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 na. Are we there yet?
Yep. We're here.
It's a short drive from your neighborhood to your naturehood. To find a neighborhood park or green space near you, visit discovertheforest.org.
Welcome back. You're watching Talking Out Loud with A.L. Cooper. I'm your host, A.L., and today we are talking about a really hot topic. Today we're talking about the evolution of love, sex, and marriage. Before we went to break, Dr. Michael McCain, minister on set today, you were talking about we were discussing how people are struggling with their religious faith and with their own idealisms of what they feel that the love should feel like for them, and how it should evolve, and sexually how things should feel for them, and how marriage should feel for them. This is such a struggle because I think so many times people live their whole life miserable because they can't truly express themselves. What are some things that you guys share, like Dr. Becky, if someone comes to Dr. Rebecca?
Either works.
If someone comes to you or to you, Michael, what are some things that you guys are saying to help them get through this struggle?
Well, for me, we said it in the first segment, it's actually scripture. There's nothing new under the sun. Mm-hmm. So for generations and thousands of years, you've had individuals with various different sexual backgrounds and proclivities, however you want to frame words to that, but it's nothing new. And I think what religion has done to us has caused us to think of things in a different way. We don't want to be that person that does anything to shame God or embarrass God. So from a religious mindset, we have taught in the church people how to camouflage themselves, not really be completely authentic, not really be themselves, forthcoming in who they are. So it causes a type of mental illness with a lot of people because deep inside they're sick, they're hurting, they need an outlet, expression, and they're taught mostly to compress that, to hide that. We put on a facade and pretend to be whatever we need to be for whoever it calls for.
Wow. Dr. Becky, is this the same thing that you're seeing with some of the cases that you've dealt with?
Definitely. And of course, on my end, the religion comes in if the clients identify as religious, and if they don't, then it's more of is this harmful or helpful?
More of a virtue type thing, or is that what you mean?
Harmful to you mentally, that psychological piece. Like you said, when people repress a part of themselves, that in of itself can be detrimental. That isn't to say that we should all just go free for all and do whatever it is we feel like we want to do, because that might be killing our boss, and I don't recommend that anybody do that. So there is definitely a balance, but it's that deciding at what point am I being so inauthentic that it's a problem. We run into this frequently with people who are gay but are Catholic or belong to a church that doesn't accept people being gay. And then you have them sort of trying to force themselves either to be straight when they're not, and then we get a lot of suicides as a result of that. Or you have people who say, well, I can't pretend, so I'm going to be me. And then there's this self-loathing, this hate, this feeling that they're embarrassing God, that they're a disappointment to God, that something is wrong with them. And that's the more extreme version, but I think that also happens when you have heterosexual couples who want to explore or do something that is otherwise divergent in some way, and they have this potential shame. Whether or not they're religious, sometimes it's just society says this isn't okay. I want to do this, but what if my friends find out, and what will they think of me?
So in essence, the evolution of marriage has changed as well when we talk about couples exploring different options. Now, you're a sexologist, Kitty Pride, and do you sometimes have couples come to you trying to figure out what are their options in a sense?
You know, I've actually gotten more men who are, you know, I try to encourage them to bring their partners and spouses into the equation, and they're more ashamed to even tell their partners.
So the men would come to you and not speak to their partner or their spouse?
I've had, on a couple occasions, partners find out about me.
Wow.
Because they thought I was the other woman.
Wow.
And I'm like, no. You know, and of course, even though it's just coaching, I still have that, you know, I still have to keep things private. But, you know, eventually I have to let them know what I do. But a lot of times, I mean, a lot of shame occurs even in the unit, in the marriage unit. What I find, and it's funny with the minister being here, because I started studying sex from the Bible. That's how I started.
Interesting.
And
Michael, you left something out when you left.
But, you know, I often tell them, because it's with the mentioning of shame, you know, the first miracle was performed after a sex act.
Okay, now we're going to have to take a commercial break on that.
Because
are you trying to get me put off the air?
No. It was at a marriage supper.
Okay.
And during those times, they didn't walk down the aisle like we do now. We want to talk about evolution of marriage. They didn't walk down the aisle and give a vow. No, there was a tent.
Interesting. A separate tent.
There's a tent. And
while
the
the dinner
bridegroom entered in there. You know, and family a lot of times would be standing outside while they're consummating the marriage. So it was after the first miracle. So that tells you right there that sex is an important element when it comes to our spirituality and just to God himself.
Wow.
So, and I try to open that up to people to get them to understand there's nothing to be ashamed of.
Interesting.
But it should be a celebratory thing. If you feel, if you have a curiosity, or if you know, there's things you kind of want to engage in, you know, I try to encourage men and even women. I've had women ask me questions, but it wasn't in a coaching capacity. It was more like girlfriends talking, because they're concerned, especially here in Atlanta with the whole down low craze.
Right.
And I'm just more like, you know, I hear more statements of, well, if a man does this, he's weak, or he's gay, or he's this. I'm like, whether he's gay or weak or whatever, you know, it's him, it's his body. He has every right to own who he is, and you have no right to shame him, but you have every right to celebrate him.
All right, that's a lot to swallow. It really is. And you mentioned Atlanta. We all here. The show is based in Atlanta, and like I said earlier, Atlanta is like the second city outside of, well, the city right behind San Francisco with the largest population of gay and lesbian citizens. And so I know that this is a part of the evolution. I remember at one point that was a word that was not necessarily used as openly, but now we have other terms that are coming on. I know, Dr. Rebecca, you were saying that you counsel couples that are swingers, as well as, what was the other?
Polyamorous.
Polyamorous. No, what is, that's a new one. I thought I heard them all, but what is polyamorous? I have no idea what that is.
So the easiest way to sort of differentiate is people who swing, and there's always rules within a couple that can alter this, but generally speaking, people who swing have sex outside of their relationship, but it is just sex. So they may routinely change partners, or they may have a single identified person that they will bring in and have a threesome or what have you. Polyamorous couples, the key word there is amorous, which means love. They actually have what most people might call more of an open marriage, in the sense that they are allowed to actually have relationships with other people, which we assume will become sexual at some point, but it is actually a romantic relationship. So you might have a husband and a boyfriend, and your boyfriend may have a boyfriend and a girlfriend, which in of itself can become complicated simply because humans are emotional, and you can imagine, you know how hard it is when you just have two people. So sometimes there'll be issues more around the emotional piece of it than anything else.
My mouth is wide open. I can't close it. This is crazy. So it's just, I guess I'm what they call vanilla Isn't that what they say? That means you're just simple, straight-laced, just kind of more traditional. Right. And I didn't think I was vanilla, but after this conversation, I'm definitely vanilla.
I'm probably vanilla compared to most of my colleagues, but let me tell you, most people are not. I think we all have, our own thing that we just keep. We don't have to broadcast it with it. Some people just don't. I don't broadcast everything that I do.
I hope not.
But
not saying that's a bad thing.
No, it's not a bad thing. It is what it is. But I
could only imagine how my mind's going. Go ahead.
But trust me, I'm more conservative than some friends of mine. I listen to their stories, and people think I have a line of guys and women just lined up out my door, going. No, sometimes I want to just be left alone. But I think the idea of being vanilla is. I don't even think it's real. I think everyone has that side that everyone has a turn on. I mean, it's just that people don't want to accept it, in my opinion.
And I think that this is something, especially in Atlanta, that we here as women deal with. I feel sometimes that if I was single, I would have so much competition with everybody. It's very hard to identify, who would be a good match for you, because you really don't know these people. You don't know what that person really is like when you meet them. I know from a traditional setting, Michael, that there are so many churches here in Atlanta, and there are an abundance of women, specifically of all races, that are seeking a counterpart. They're seeking a male, and it is just such a struggle. And that's why I want to talk about the evolution of this, because maybe we need to be more open-minded. Maybe we need to move someplace else. I mean, I don't know what the solution is. What do you say? Don't you get a lot of women specifically coming to you asking you, what am I going to do? Everybody's just all freaky here in Atlanta.
They're probably trying to propose to them.
What am I going to do?
Absolutely. In my time of pastoring, I've encountered and counseled so many couples, and usually I would get a lot of couples where the husband or husband-to-be happens to be bisexual or has some kind of struggle with his sexuality, and it's always the question of, can I survive this marriage? Can I make it through this marriage? Or has this person truly changed? And I really believe that those are things that get defined by the couple themselves, the decisions that they choose to make with each other in terms of their faithfulness, etc. But outside of that, I really do believe that there's a conversation that needs to come in the religious community. There's an awakening or some kind of, that's no other word really. There's just an awakening that needs to happen within the church for people to realize these are not just taboo issues or the things that you sweep under the rug, but these are everyday things, and you're dealing with everyday people that have issues, that have things that need to be expressed, etc. So I feel like this evolution is creating a different type of awareness for people, bringing their attention to something that we want to keep at the back door.
Wow. Well, we have a question from our audience member.
Hi. Yes. I know you guys were saying basically there's nothing new under the sun, and how just now we're coming upon, more people are just being open or feeling more like they'll be accepted for being open about what they are and what they like to do. But my question is, if there's nothing new under the sun, isn't this something that's happened before? I mean, in general, in society, haven't people been really, really conservative and then been really, really open? So my question is, what is causing people, I guess, to open up now versus before now, and what made us close in the first place?
Great question. Thank you so much for your question. Who wants to take this? Dr. Becky, Sexy Kitty, Michael, come on, jump in.
Well, I guess we're probably going to say the same thing. Absolutely, it has happened multiple times. And I don't have a degree in history, I'll admit that. But we have seen this. There's an opening up, there's more it's accepted, and then there's a closing. And it is societal, which often can be linked to religion, but even religion itself is a cultural in a very serious way. So historically, a lot of the times it was because there was a king or an emperor who said, nope, that's not allowed. Can't do that. In fact, a lot of religions were adopted to keep people in line, to keep, going going to burn in hell if you do that. Don't do that. But at the end of the day, it's society. Society saying we're willing to accept this, we're not willing to accept that. And why it opens, I don't have an answer for, so I don't know if anybody else does, but it just seems that people, I think as we get hit with things over and over again, you get used to it. You become less sensitized. The first time you ever see a man kissing a man, if you've never seen that in your whole life, it's, oh my God, what is happening?
Well, you're absolutely right. It is something that is shocking, especially if you experience it for the first time. And we're going to talk about something that's coming to our awareness now, and that's transgender, that is bisexual, that is a lot of these terms that we've discussed, because that is a new evolution of love, some even self-love. Oh, yeah. So when we return, we'll be back with more of Talking Out Loud with A.L. Cooper.
Life's taught me a lot, and I'm ready for more.
Well, you're not the typical kind of candidate that I hire, but you are exactly what I'm looking for.
Your company could be missing out on the candidates it needs most. Learn how to find a great pool of untapped talent at gradsoflife.org.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
When I get all steamed up, then I shout.
Tip me over and pour me out. Oh. The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Cheers. Take time to be a dad today.
The inherent right to work is one of the elemental privileges of a free people. Endowed, as our nation is, with abundant physical resources, and inspired as it should be with the high purpose to make those resources and opportunities available for the enjoyment of all. We approach this problem of re-employment with the real hope of finding a better answer than we have now.
Talking about the evolution of love, sex, and marriage. Now, before we went to break, we had a very lively discussion about the different types of lifestyles. We have someone here new to our guest panel. We have TP. TP, do you mind introducing yourselves to our audience?
Hello, everyone. My name is TP. I'm an adult entertainer, and I'm also the group leader for Ultimate Pleasures.
Wow.
Which is a swinger group.
Well, you will definitely fit in perfect. Right now, we were talking about the evolution in a sense where people are now, Michael expressed it very, very well. He said there's an awakening of who they are, what they like, and they are now breaking outside of the box. I've talked about the struggles from being here in Atlanta as a single woman, just trying to figure out where I fit in regards to the type of male that I'm trying to attract. From your perspective as an adult entertainer, as well as you're involved in the alternative lifestyles such as being a swinger, what do you see? How has that evolution affected your life? How did you even get to this place?
Well, for me personally, I've always been a sexual person. And I found that a lot of the people that I was meeting in my life, they weren't on my level. So once I understood that about myself from the beginning. So once I understood that, then I went a step further as far as trying to put myself in a better place to where I could meet other like minds like unto myself.
Okay. Now, Dr. Becky, you were describing the different types of couples and the definitions of polyamorous and deaf swingers. If someone's not familiar with that term, TP, what's the best way to describe that lifestyle so that they have a clear, because there's two different. She explained polyamorous as having an open relationship that is more romantically linked, correct? Did I get it right? Or I'm learning all
Close
this.
enough.
Okay, I'm learning all of this.
I mean, it would be 5 people in there all. It's interesting, but yeah, it would be romance. It's not just the sex. They actually have a relationship.
Okay.
I have to make that very clear.
They have a relationship. Okay.
It's an actual relationship. It's just that, it gets complicated because there'd be 2 women and 3 men.
But everybody's.
And everybody's,
Okay, all right. I'm figuring this out. All right, now, have you guys seen, like TP, you're in this, have you seen the evolution of that lifestyle, the swinger lifestyle, evolve here in Atlanta?
Yes, I have.
Okay, do you see an increase, decrease, more women, more men? I mean, because this is something that is now coming to the forefront for a lot of people, and they are more curious about it, and they're getting more involved with it here in Atlanta. What is it? What have you seen transform? Is something positive things from it, or more negative?
Well, I guess over a period of time, change is evident. But I think because it's become more mainstream now, that tends to attract some of the wrong type of people, because the swing lifestyle was always meant to be something more private, more secretive, much like a fraternity or sorority or secret society of that sort. But with it becoming so popular, you have a lot of people that are trying to jump on board with it just because it's something different for them, and they really lack the mindset that it takes to really understand what it's all about.
Very interesting. Now, Michael, from a religious perspective, how do you explain that to your how can this be explained biblically? I mean, is it justifiable? I know, Kitty, you were saying that this is something that's very much connected, this evolution and this awakening is very much connected to religion. Would you agree?
If you break down what a relationship is to be defined biblically, it's between a man and a woman. So a lot of these alternative lifestyles, whether it is same-sex relationships or swinging or being polyamorous, would clearly all be unbiblical. And a lot of this stuff, as we said earlier, is nothing new. This was what the scripture was talking about in Sodom and Gomorrah. These are the type of lifestyles these people lived during those biblical times.
Wow, anybody want to jump in?
Can I add, and it's not to overstep my bounds, it's not to say this is right or wrong, but it's like the very first, I would say, I don't know if it's polyamorous or swing situation, but it's like Abraham offered his wife Sarah. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about. And I'm not trying to offer it's right or wrong or anything, because I think, and I'm not going to go there, but I will say this. Obviously, these type of relationships are prevalent. It's all over the Bible, but we don't talk about it. And I think it's one thing to say, okay, of course, what is considered the godly relationship. However, perhaps maybe I'm just a realist. The truth of the matter is that some of the first clients that came to me were Christians, ministers, pastors, deacons, whatever. They're bisexual, or they're straight, or they're gay. Some of them are in relationships. Some of them are swingers. And it's about getting knowledge about what's really going on to be able to better serve the people. Because the majority of the people who've come to me, they've gone to pastors, they've gone to, others, they couldn't get answers. They're not looking to be preached to. They're looking to really be able to embrace themselves, really. When I decided, and I won't talk too much, but I learned a long time ago, I enjoy sex. In fact, when I was still more actively, I guess, in church, at least fundamental Christian, I would say, you know what, I just decided, I'm going to be honest, I love fornication.
You said that in Sunday school?
No, not in Sunday school. I was at home, but I was in prayer, and I was like, I enjoy fornication. Before that, it was such a struggle But I decided, you know what, I need to embrace the truth. I enjoy fornication. I'm not single, and I like to have sex with people I'm not married to. And after that, instead of sex having me, I had sex. I was able to control myself.
Do you think that it comes down at the end of the day to people living out their curiosities, like you said earlier, Dr. Rebecca, about people coming to you because they are going through a mental anguish? Like I guess now, so I want to talk more about it because of, I'm not going to name any specific names just for liability, legal liability, but people changing their sex. And now you have more people are becoming more aware of the term transgender, transsexual, transracial now too, but but all of these trans, and I am completely confused, and I can only imagine how this is affecting children. I know that they have to be confused. What are some of the things that you guys are hearing from kids?
Well, what's really interesting is that we're not born with any of society's expectations. It's much easier seen with race than it is with other sexes, I think, just because we don't necessarily say, hey, kids, watch porn, hopefully.
Hopefully you don't.
But, you know, the Cheerios commercial with the mixed couple was a perfect example. All these kids were interviewed saying, I don't understand, what's the problem? Kids who, they've done studies, and they found that the children of gay parents are actually very well adapted to the world, sometimes more so than the children of straight parents, which is probably similar to what you'd find with children of mixed parents. You know, if I'm forced to see, you know, both sides of the coin from a young age, and it's normal to me, then I'm not concerned. We grow up, when we're told that something isn't normal as a child, that's when it's disturbing to us, or we grow up to have a problem with it.
Well, I guess from my perspective is, I understand that at the end of the day, people choose their decisions and the way that things are evolving, especially with love, because I think that's what it comes down to, self-love specifically. You know, there are so many different levels. You could love someone just based off the way that they treat you, how they provide for you, but at the end of the day, I think the struggle is self-acceptance and self-love, which you have completely embraced, and I admire that. There are so many people, TP, that are not as open. They can't say, I like to blah, 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 and blah, 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 blah. They can't. How did you come to that point, and what advice do you give to people who are struggling with that self-love?
I guess I would have to speak for myself first and just say,
I'm going to need you to. It's okay.
First, I would have to just speak for myself, and in order for you to answer that question, you have to become in tune with yourself and who you are, first off. If you can't do that, you're not going to be able to answer any of the other questions. And once you become comfortable in yourself and know who you are, that somewhat opens you up to be able to say, yes, this is what I'm interested in, and not be ashamed of it. No difference from someone that's gay coming out of the closet,
right?
Publicly getting married and things of that nature. It starts within.
Wow, that's really good advice. Do you sometimes have people, when they do find out about, you know, maybe how open you are and how expressive you are and how much you're okay with what you do, but they say things that are contrary to that are not kind? Do you ever experience that?
Oh, all the time.
Really? What are some things that they say to you? I'm just curious.
Well, one of the things they always say is, also because I'm in the porn industry, oh, you must be gay.
Really?
Oh, you must be bi, because they automatically assume that if you're willing to step outside the box a little, then you're probably willing to step all the way outside.
Wow, wow. Now, we come to with the evolution of sex and love and marriage and a lot of the acceptance and openness, how do you explain the increase of opposition like that, what you're getting? Because there's always going to be someone that says, no, that's not right. But that, to me, even though I may come out and somebody says, no, 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 that is not right, you are wrong, you are going to go wherever you're supposed to go religiously or whatever, shouldn't that cause some sort of mental anguish? Do you get clients that come to you, Dr. Becky, with those struggles because they have come out, they have been open, there was an awakening, they are now want to be polymorous or polyamorous or poly McFadden, I don't know, whatever terms are out there, and they now get that backlash. What do you do when you get that backlash?
Absolutely. And it's hard because we all want to sit there and say, well, I don't care what people think. Right. I'm living life for me. We care what people think. It's human nature. We always care. And usually when we say we don't care, we're actually kind of trying to prove to other people that we don't care because we care that they care that we care. Exactly. So I can't convince people to not care what people think.
Right.
But I can help people understand what's important to them and what's healthy. If we live for other people, we're not happy. Period, end of story. And I don't mean service to other people or volunteer work, but I mean changing who we are as a person because we think that's what other people expect of us. We won't be happy. Wow. And I think when people sort of really own that and realize that, this wonderful quote, those who mind don't matter and those who matter don't mind, the people who are really important or really have your back will have your back no matter what. Absolutely. And the people who won't, you're probably better off without anyway. So sometimes it can kind of help to weed things out, but it is hard not to take those things personally when you hear it on a daily basis.
Can I say this? And then even when I coach, I'm spending more time giving people permission to just be themselves.
Is that all they pay you to do? No, I'm just.
I mean, that's how it's like. They come to me about and ask a question. In any of the day, they just want permission to just be who they are. They just want to know that at least one person accepts them, and I accept them, and they see that. But most importantly, it's just getting them to accept themselves and just have permission to do that.
Wow. Now, speaking of which, I always go back to you. I find, just how fascinating it is that you've been in Atlanta for some time now, right?
Yes.
And how long have this lifestyle existed, especially among African Americans? I don't think I've ever really heard of a lot of African Americans, when I hear swingers, I hear, like old white people in the suburbs, I've never really heard of a large movement of African Americans until I moved here to Atlanta. Is that common?
Well, it's very prominent in the black community, actually.
Really?
But the reason that it would seem that it's not is because when you think of its origin, which dates back to Julius Caesar and Alexander the Great, that's the picture that's depicted. So it's not speaking of black people per se, but it involves all ethnicities across the board.
Wow. Well, I'm interested in learning more. So we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back with more of Talking Out Loud with A.L. Cooper.
Oh, look, a redhead.
Staring contest.
You still got it.
I know.
Come alive with the forest.
The dad was cute.
You were looking right at us.
Visit discovertheforest.org to find a forest near you.
We are neighbors and best friends.
I love my sister.
My heart doesn't see race. Love is love.
Our family is no less than any other family.
Mommy.
En tu nuevo rol te ayudamos a cuidar. Llama al 1-888-971-2013 y obtén información para cuidar mejor a quien cuidó de ti.
Talking Out Loud with A.L. Cooper. I'm your host, A.L., and today we're talking out loud about love, sex, and marriage. Now, before we went to break, this lady in the audience had a question. What was your question, ma'am?
I know you guys said earlier religion is a new form of a cultural structure to kind of maybe keep people in line and give everybody a general standard. And it seems like the problem may be that people want to express themselves, but to fit in, you have to sacrifice. And so where is the line that you should draw between pleasing yourself or self-love and sacrifice for the sake of everybody else? And is there any way we can make it even so that we can all just get along?
Can we all just get along? Well, who would like to answer that?
I just want to say a little something. I believe, my personal belief is that what the scripture says, we all have a free will. And each person has their own will to fulfill in their life and need to make peace with themselves first in order to be authentic. And then that peace that they need to make with whomever they call their creator or their God who they worship.
Okay.
And I was going to say, even like when, just with my own personal, transformation, you have to be honest with yourself first before you sacrifice or do anything. You have to be honest with yourself. If you're not honest with yourself, you can't really. It's not going to be. You can't come to any type of resolution, until you decide. Until you just realize, if you're gay, you have to be honest about that. I'm gay, whether you like it or not. Just be honest.
Okay. We have another question.
My question is more biblical to the addressed to the pastor. I understand the stories in the Bible of different sexual experience that relate to some of the things that we do today. And I do understand that everyone have a freedom to whatever sex desire or whatever they choose. But the Bible doesn't indicate that these different forms and different experiences are right. Actually, it condemns some of the experience that they do. So I wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, thank you for your statement. Wow, this is a hot topic. Mm-hmm. So what do you guys think? There are people that do believe that it is religiously wrong, point blank, and that it is just not right. However, there are so many people, like we talked about earlier, who are struggling. They are trying to be happy. And personally, I believe that anything that you can digest yourself, that is not harming anybody, that is not putting anybody else in harm's way and affecting anyone else's livelihood or health or even mental capacity is okay. I mean, is that such a bad thing?
I think that a gray area comes about because people are trying to balance what they feel with what society says. So who's to say that what society says is right? It's how I look at it also, because like from even a biblical standpoint, a lot of things that are biblical, you have to understand that that's information that's been passed down. It's been in many different tongues. So who's to say that we're getting full knowledge of what even is being expressed to us? So there's various ways you can look at that.
Wow. Michael, what do you have to say?
I agree. One of the things that I make a note of is that being a minister, I'm often asked if certain things are biblical, how do I define this, or how can I explain this or that? And the truth of the matter is, and I speak really for the church when I say this, is that they don't have all the answers. That is the clear reality that nobody's willing to say. They don't have the answers. So if we could come to the conclusion of being able to define certain things, and the thing that I'm coming to understand when I talk with people or counsel people, the reason people are moving from religion is because how could a God that created me that says he loves me, that says he this or that, would send me to hell, would, damn me, would do all of these things to me, yet love me. So it's something people have a hard time wrapping their mind around, and it's the one easier thing that is easier to move away from, because we have the tendency of doing that. If something really hurts you, if something really condemns you, if something brings some type of shame to you, you'll move away from it. You'll leave it alone. You'll abandon it. It's the same with our relationships, with our families, and this is why so many people are closeted, because they have the fear of, if I express this part of myself or I express this thing about me, I'm going to be abandoned. I'm going to be ridiculed. I'm going to be stamped with some type of label or ostracized because of this identity.
Wow. Well, I love it. I absolutely love this conversation. I'm learning a lot. And I want to get back to you, TP. You never really talked about how here in Atlanta, I asked you before we went to break about the increase of the swinger lifestyle, especially in the African-American community. But you said that it's always been like this in the African-American community. It's just been closeted, correct?
Correct.
What about like African Americans? I know you are an adult entertainer in the adult entertainment industry. Are we seeing an increase of that? People expressing themselves through film, and and different things of that nature. Is there like an association or anything like that for African Americans in that industry?
I wouldn't, even though they're similar, I really wouldn't put them exactly both together, because from an adult entertainment standpoint, that's more from a standpoint of expressing yourself through making money.
I see what you're saying. It's not necessarily a lifestyle. It's more of an occupational career.
Correct.
Well, what about this? We do talk about adult entertainment. That is a billion-dollar industry, speaking of money. And I believe the evolution of love, sex, and marriage has evolved. It includes that. More couples are now engaging together and enjoying adult entertainment in regards to clubs, not just necessarily swinging clubs, but even like here in Atlanta, the big thing now is everybody goes to the strip clubs.
Right.
Oh, yeah. And that is huge, regardless if you are gay, regardless if you're straight, if you're a Christian, if you're not a Christian, if you're whatever religion you believe in, that is like the everyday club. And women actually go there to meet men, which it still baffles me. I'm still kind of brand new. I'm still very traditional in that aspect. But there is definitely a movement coming to our world, to our city especially. Do you think from a clinical perspective that this is healthy, Dr. Rebecca?
I think people being authentic is healthy. And sometimes being authentic does mean some people decide to be monks. Doesn't mean monks don't want to have sex, but they decide that what's important to them is their religious beliefs and being celibate. So you have to decide for yourself what's most important. And the valuing yourself has come up a lot, not just being authentic, but also valuing yourself as a person. So if you decide to meet a man in a strip club, not saying that that's wrong or right, but who are you meeting? How do they value women? How are they going to treat you? Doesn't mean they don't because they're in there. But I think things can be healthy or unhealthy, and it just is up to us to decide how we value ourselves and then expect that from others. People will treat you the way you allow them to treat you.
That's right. Well, believe it or not, this has been the fastest 58 minutes I have ever talked in my entire life. We're coming to the end of our show, but before we go, I'd like for you guys just to kind of let people know how they can find out more about you or reach out if they have questions, if they want to expound the conversation, if they want to contact you, maybe to discuss some issues or concerns that they've had. Do you mind giving them your website or your information, email account so they can find out more information?
Yeah, for me, just go to sexbykittypride.com, and all my social media is on there. I blog, so I probably will blog about this conversation, sure. Yeah, definitely, especially for coaching. It's not therapy, it's just more so helping people to just realize their sexual selves, nothing more, nothing less. And that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay. And Dr. Rebecca, if they wanted to learn more information about your services?
You can just Google Dr. Rebecca Johnson, PSYD at the end, and that should pull up all my information. But you can also go to my website, which is www.conciergepsychatl.com.
Wonderful. Dr. Michael McCain?
You can Google me as well, Dr. Michael McCain. I have a public figure Facebook page, and you can also visit michaelmccain.org.
Okay. And lastly, TP?
And with me, you can look me up under TP, the Jack of All Trades, on Facebook. And I'm also a part of the male talent for Evasive Angles, so you can just pull up the Evasive Angles website and go to TP Total Package.
And you also have your group if someone was interested in the ultimate pleasures. Do you have like a Facebook page or anything like that?
It would be the same.
The
TP,
same.
Jack of all trades.
Okay, awesome, wonderful.
You gotta keep that on the low.
Well, you know what? I appreciate the healthy conversation we've had about it, and I guess the bottom line is this: when it comes down to the evolution of sex, love, and specifically marriage, there will always be decisions that one will have to embrace for their own personal selves. It's a journey, it is a lifestyle, but like we said here before, it's being just your authentic self, and you cannot go wrong with that. Some will get backlash, some will feel ashamed and try to embarrass your decision, but at the end of the day, like Michael said it very, very well, this is an awakening that needs to happen. We have so many people that are dying and that are miserable and unhappy just because they're trying to live a life that maybe they really wasn't meant to. No one knows that life but you, and I hope that you have enjoyed this conversation. Until next time, we will talk out loud with you later.
She's talking out loud, but she's saying something. 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 Politics, religion, fashion, people, passion, lifestyles, no topic too wild. She's talking out loud, but she's saying something. She's talking out loud, but she's saying something. She's talking out loud, but she's saying something. She's talking out